NFR podcast.
So welcome back to another bonus footage with us. Today we're going to be talking about JID's DiCaprio 2. It's something that I feel as if went under the radar with a lot of hip hop fans. But if you're a JID, Dreamville, or even a lyrical hip hop fan, you have to know this project because it's absolutely monumental. It's the second birthday. It was dropped in 2018. Lou, I want to start you off like this. What do you think? Why do you think this album is so special, and why do you think it feels so complete as a whole?
I just think that, he released it, a year after the Never Story, which was his big debut album. It was after he had signed to Dreamville and J.Cole. And, he was a really interesting voice just because, people didn't know how to categorize his sound. Many people compared him to like a higher pitched Kendrick, but, people weren't sure if they really liked him, but they knew that, because of his, ability to change flow so quickly and just be this really exciting rapper who can also sing really well, he captivated people. And, there was a movement that he was creating along with Earth Gang, and he really put Dreamville on another fucking level.
Yeah, the level of quality in his content is unprecedented. There's not a lot of guys that could do imagery like him or even have a flow like him. I mean, this is when it started to get really impressive because the Never Story was more of a cinematic experience. It was more of a complete...
It was more concept-based.
It was more
about
of
like his upbringing in Atlanta and stuff.
It was more of a concept album, and there was a lot of personal anecdotes in it, but DiCaprio 2 was something much different than that, and that's what I like about it. It was more of him being in his personal rapper bag, something that he wanted to show the industry that he could keep up with the top dogs, and that he's going to be a top dog one day. And funny enough, JID is I think 28 at this point. A lot of people think that he
turned 30 this year.
He turned 30. Holy shit! My bad. I'm so off on that.
And he seems younger than 30, to be honest.
Dude, he seems my age.
Yeah,
guy seems my age, but nonetheless, he has a lot of potential. And this made you excited for what's to come with JID. So Lou, one thing that I want to ask you is, what do you think's to come from JID, and what do you think's next up for him?
I just feel like at this point, he hasn't missed, and the whole purpose of DiCaprio 2 was for him to really show his talents. This was like, okay, I'm here, I'm with J. Cole, I'm rapping on songs with Joey Badass and Method Man, and I'm keeping up. I'm able to, go bar for bar with these guys, so I should be respected as a top-tier rapper, and he is right now. And with DiCaprio 2, to me, he proved that, he's destined for greatness.
Yeah, and he is destined for greatness. And this album, in my opinion, is a 9 on 10. I'm a big fan of this album. It's, there's a lot of tracks in my rotation. So let's dive into the track list. There's a lot of interesting tracks, a lot of interesting songs. And the first one I actually want to start with is Working Out, off the top of my head. It's the most iconic song on the whole album, I feel as if. It's something that resonates with a lot of people, especially that whole sample and the production behind them. You look at Working Out and then you look at the rest of the album, it's completely different. And this is the whole narrative for the track list. It was less concentrated than the Never Story. It was dropped back in 2017, but it was more of a track list sort of vibe to it. And this is a question for me to you. Is this actually considered a studio album, or is it more of a mixtape?
Yeah, it's considered a studio album, but it's a sequel to the DiCaprio
mixtape,
EP mixtape, whatever, that came out in 2015 when JID was still kind of underground. And there's actually some quality songs on that, EP/mixtape that I recommend you guys checking out if you haven't already. But like you said, Working Out's a great song. It's really, one of those standouts. And it's also because of that skit at the end of the song where you have, I don't know who it is, but it's someone that mentions, J. Cole looking like he needs someone's charger.
Yeah.
Phenomenal skit, and it's little cinematic details like that drive this album home for me. And I just feel like it's one of the albums with the most replay value that I've heard in recent memory. Most
definitely. There's a lot of stuff that's still in my rotation. There's a lot of stuff that's still in my playlist. And the great part about Working Out is that if you're a smoker, this is your destiny, and that this is something that you have to have in your rotation at all times. It puts you in a trance. You're listening to this at the car late at night, or you're listening to this with your boys, you're with a girl. You could play this wherever you want. Another track that I want to go off to is Off the Zoinkies. It is one of the most underrated hip-hop songs of the 2010 decade. It's pure quality. Apparently Mac Miller had a lot of influence on this track, and he actually guided the whole creative part with this. And if Mac Miller was still alive, do you think we would have ever seen a joint album come out from them too?
Oh, definitely, man. And what's crazy is that JID was supposed to be touring with Mac Miller for the Swimming tour, and of course, he unfortunately passed away
with Thundercat.
With Thundercat as well. But JID actually, he spawned his own tour after this album came out, the Catch Me If You Can tour, which we actually went to.
Crazy tour.
And what a fucking show that was, man. He's a great live performer.
Yes, he is.
And, I can't wait to see what he's going to do because, you know, in 2020 now, we've seen him, you know, drop 2 freestyles. We've seen him drop the song Ballads with Conway the Machine. So based on the quality of, you know, those kind of loosies that he's given us this year, where do you think the future lies with JID?
I think his next album is going to be definitely more conceptual. I feel as if he has a sort of like an empty spot in his discography for a classic, right? Mm-hmm. Like you know, his albums are too new to be able to even judge them that way. You know, like especially if you're looking at his early like Para 2 and you know the first DiCaprio. They're not classics, right? Like it's more of his underground stuff, fantastic mixtapes in quality, but you know, it's not to the level of a classic. You could make the argument for the Never Story, but we still need like a good 3 years for that to really settle in and say like, okay, wow, this is still being played, it's still being talked about within the community. And of course, DiCaprio 2 came out 2 years ago, so how are you going to really, you know, call that classic level? So he still has that spot that's untouched. You know, there's still that sort of lingering thing of like, okay, could he create like a GKMC? Could create a For Your Eyes Only? Could he create a 1999? Could he create a Taboo? You know, mm-hmm. Could he put himself with those top dogs? And in my opinion, he definitely can. You know, there's a big place in hip hop right now for someone to come in and take it. I mean, Drake is really on his commercial vibe. I think that he's going for a more commercial approach. Not saying that it sounds dipping, but we know where he's going with it. You know, then you look at J.Cole. The fall off is coming. Yes, but it's probably his retirement album. We don't even know when Kendrick's dropping. We don't know when Joey's dropping. We don't know when Denzel's dropping next. So it's a good time for JID to come in and swoop in.
And I feel like this will be, you know, his biggest album yet, just because if you look at the numbers of DiCaprio 2, it only sold like 16,000 copies first week.
Yeah, it only debuted at like 41 on the Billboard.
Yeah, man.
It wasn't crazy.
It stunned me just because when you see how engaged, you know, JID's fans are and how big that community of JID fans are, it's astonishing to see that, you know, it didn't sell that much. But, you know, if you compare his numbers 2018 to 2020, his growth has been amazing. And I feel like, you know, with this next album, he's going to establish himself as one of, if not the leader of the new generation of lyricists in hip hop.
Yeah, and there's that place missing. There's someone that has to take it over because, you know, he could go bar for bar with the guys that I mentioned before. You know, he's a fantastic lyricist. His imagery is top level. And not only that, but he probably has the coldest flow in the game right now. Like, you listen to this guy go on a track and it's, you know, it's like skates on ice. Like, it glides and it never stops, right? And you could have JID go for three verses and you'll never feel sad about it because it's always interesting and he's always switching it up. And that's something that I got from DiCaprio too. It allowed me to understand what JID was trying to get out of, one, of his aesthetic, and two, out of his writing. You know, it was something where, yes, there was personal anecdotes, but then he started getting into these complex rhyme structures. And then, you know, the production choices that he was choosing, you know, compare like, let's say, you know, Westbrook to Working Out, or compare Off the Zoinkies to, you know, Hot Box, or, you know, I think it's Despacito too. Yeah, Despacito too. It's all completely different, but then again, he makes it fit well into a project. And, you know, that's what I want to ask you. You know, I said he was going into more of a cinematic vibe, but do you think he's going to go again for a tracklist sort of vibe, or do you think he's going to go into something more, you know, cinematic and, you know, touch to the heart, let's say?
Yeah, DiCaprio 2 was definitely very cinematic. We saw that through, like you said, the writing, you know, the skits, the production. And I think that he's going to continue that cinematic, to add that cinematic value to his music. But like you said, I think it's time for him to go into this crazy concept album and to break, you know, barriers in his career and in hip hop. The last thing that I want to ask you is, do you think that there's any weak tracks at all on DiCaprio 2?
What's the track with I think it's Ellie Mae and
Emily and Black?
Yeah, Emily and Black. Yeah, that was super, like, I don't know. That
felt rushed, man.
Yeah,
honestly.
it felt rushed, and it low-key didn't have a place on the track list.
And that was the only song though, out of all, I think maybe 15 or 16 songs on the album, that wasn't really up to the same, you know, level of quality.
Yeah, it wasn't up to the same level of quality. And, you know, if he would have been able to get, let's say, you know, get an Earth Gang feature in there, or someone from you know, the Dreamville camp, I would have been totally for it. But listen, guys, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification type to keep up with everything NFR. We're connecting the world to hip hop. This has been a great episode, and happy birthday to DiCaprio 2.